And welcome back for the second game between Hilltank and Braingod. Braingod is playing under the name 100 per win. He is ex-pro player, ex-semi-pro player, sea.kh. He's playing the blue Terran. Hilltank, his opponent, and I have no idea who this guy is, as I have mentioned in the video before, is playing the orange Protoss on spot number 12, up against Braingod on spot number 3. And the very first stages of the game are always so very exciting, both just happily spamming away for the nice little APM boosting. And he starts with a barracks on A10. And now we will be seeing an SCV coming out once he has 100 minerals, and he'll throw down a depot right next to it. Oh no, not even right next to it, just right there in the top corner of his base, right off the gas. And Hilltank starting off with a pylon. And there's a gateway, and there's another gateway, followed up by the very usual pylon in the front. Oh, I was just off by a little bit, but pylon in the front. And he sends his probe to spot number 1. The right top corner. And that's a pretty early scout. Braingod very early on his middle scout, making sure that there is no mid build. And there is in fact no mid build, so he immediately sends his SCV to the top right corner, where he will find that probe. And you will now either know that Hilltank is in the top right corner or on the top middle spot. And in turn, Hilltank now knows that Braingod is on the right spot, the right middle spot. And now both barracks is almost, the one barracks finished, the other one is about to finish, both are almost finished. There's another depot coming up on the bottom side, just making sure he has vision of these corners so Hilltank cannot sneak in any sneaky, cheeky cannons. There's a little bugging with the SCV, sometimes you have to like manually spam click the SCV off of that little gas area and then put it back on, just to ensure that you have gas. And he's lining up his marines at his choke. Zealots walking in to harass his marines, and here he's scouting a little bit back and forth with his SCV. There's a Nexus and a Forge, and 100 per win is Hilltank is trying to harass, but these marines are very nicely positioned behind the barracks, and it will be very hard for Hilltank to even harass him without taking way too much damage on his zealots. So he pulls back, puts them in the choke of Braingod, and here Hilltank is starting his own choke with 2 cannons, and there's the cybernetics core thrown down, and he's on 2 gas, but he's not mining from either of the 2 gases yet. We'll be seeing him pulling off 6 probes in the not too distant future. While he's fighting, he's busy fighting here, so he's distracted from his base. I was distracted too, but for different reasons. And here he has pulled off 6 probes off of his minerals, put them on the gas. Now happily mining gas, and he'll actually be behind a little bit, just a little bit. He won't be able to immediately throw down a cybernetics robotics facility. He'll start off with a Citadel of Dune instead, and will delay his robotic facility a little bit longer. And he's going to throw down his robotic facilities at his choke, of course, as is usual and as is tradition. There is the robotic facility right around the corner, and Braingod now starting his factory, and he has added on 2 CCs to improve his economy. And he completely stopped producing marines, so if Hilltank wanted to throw a curveball, he could throw a curveball and deal some real damage to Braingod, but Braingod very confident in his ability to micro and control his units. Sticks with the 7 marines, although 2 firebats are actually on the way. Hilltank has himself still making zealots. There's the second robotic facility, and we will be seeing a robotics support bay once this one finishes. And there is the engineering bay, so we can make turrets and detection and anti-drop turrets. There is a depot coming down at his choke, starting up his wall to prevent Hilltank from walking into his base. There's a turret for anti-DT cheeses, although I'd say that against cheese it's a little bit late, but he knows the timing at which Hilltank can have his Templar's Archive up, because he saw the Cybernetic Corps being started earlier, and there is a turret coming down at his base. He's now pulling his Marines back behind the wall of depots, although now there, come on. Oh, he's not making a depot there. What was he making? Oh, he is making a depot there, but he's not lining it up. That's a little bit triggering that he didn't line it up correctly, but the function is nonetheless still the exact same. Factory finished. Siege tank almost. Siege tank is out. Siege mode is almost finished. Mining away from 2 gas, and yeah, just happily building his base peacefully. Complete peace. And he's doing the same strategy as he did last game. There's a Reaver loaded up into the shuttle, another Reaver coming up. He's not making Zealot lags. Instead, he's going for shuttle speed and armor upgrade. Ground armor, of course. Well, actually, the Zealot lag's already finished. I missed that one. My bad. But it's all Gucci now. And Hunter per Win is this time sticking around. Sticking to making more Marines instead of going for the raids like he did in the previous game. Now he's making more Marines as anti-drop, and the Reavers are actually just outside of the tank range. He has to unsiege, re-siege, and there is a new depot being constructed immediately. So no time for Hilltank to run his units into Braingod's base, though I am not too sure if he would have been able to do a lot of damage, even though the number of units seems to be in favor of Hilltank there. And now he is loading up all of his units into the shuttles, and he's going for a drop straight into Braingod's base. Is he going for the main, or is he going to drop that on the side? Braingod has his units all spread out across his entire base, and he goes for a drop against the turrets, and he immediately manages to take down a Reaver, but the Reaver and the Zealots take down all the Marines that were there, and now he's going to take down these turrets, although he did lose all of his shuttles, so it will take a little bit of time before he can send in another drop, but he is already loading up another drop inside his base. There is 2 Templars and 4 Zealots inside the shuttles, and he will avoid these turrets real nicely, and Braingod still completely distracted by the Reavers and the Zealots. The Reavers and Zealots have done a lot of damage to it, to Braingod's supply count, and Braingod pulls off his SCVs, and he dodges the first storm, dodges the second storm, but he does lose a couple of... He loses 9 SCVs to the storms, and Hilltank now immediately loads up the Templar into the shuttle, hoping that he will have enough time to have the Templar inside the shuttle waiting and restoring some energy. And Braingod does notice it, and he sends his Marines down to kill the shuttle. The shuttle and the Templar both die, and even though Braingod lost a lot of supply to the drop, he does not lose any SCVs of significance. He did lose 9, but he doesn't lose a significant amount of SCVs, so he's all fine and will be able to keep building on his base and keep turtling until Hilltank either breaks him or Braingod becomes big enough or too big for Hilltank to break into. Now here is he's waiting for another 2 of his shuttles to finish, and he's going to load that up with a lot of Templars. He's making pretty much only Templars, although there are now also a bunch of Zealots queued up in his gateways. There is a Corsair that has just finished, and there is the Dragoon range upgrade. Storm upgrade has already been finished, as we have seen earlier, so he's now adding on Templar energy, and he's going for ground upgrade number 2. He's not going for any weapon upgrades, he's just going for ground upgrades as armor, and there are 2 more forges for shields and weapon upgrades. As I've mentioned just a little bit earlier, he's not going for the conventional drops, he's going for Archon drops over just a lot of Templars, so that's really nice to see. He puts the Archons on the side, outside of the vision of the scans, although he might have just scanned it. Let me see. He did not scan it, he scanned the spots on the side instead, just in case the Hilltank was building there or storing up shuttles on the side. But now Braingod now knows that a drop will be flying in very soon. Let me check if he has energy for another scan. He has almost his energy for 3 more scans. So he might be throwing them out anytime soon on top of Hilltank's base. He'll be able to scan the entire base of Hilltank and then exactly know what is going on. And I honestly think that Hilltank is taking a little bit too long with this drop he is now planning on throwing out into Braingod's base. And Braingod has thrown down a lot of turrets all around his base. He's now hovering engineering base over the hills for vision, and Hilltank is going for the frontal play instead of a drop, so he might drop all these Archons and units on top of the bunkers behind the depots, and there he goes, he drops the units out behind the bunkers and he takes down all of the tanks, but all of the Marines that have been stimmed into the fight are taking down the Zealots, and the Archons die very quickly, and the Zealots also die very quickly, and the Marines, but safely behind the depot wall, are now safe from harm and taking down the Zealots and Archons that were attacking, and another wave of Zealots and Archons is coming in, and a little wall, the wall has been broken into, but the turrets that is standing there is forcing the Zealots to enter in single file, and the Marines just stim again and very quickly take down all of the Zealots who only have armor upgrades and no weapon upgrades finished yet. Whereas the Marines have 1 armor and 1 weapon upgrade, which help them take down the 1 armor Zealots just a little bit quicker. And now another drop is being loaded up. There's Zealots in there, there's a Templar in there, and he is got a lot of Zealots waiting to get loaded up, some Templars too, and he's adding a lot more robotic facilities. So he really wants to throw down a lot of drops very quickly in rapid succession, but it might just be too late. Braingod is really big, he's got a lot of units lined up everywhere, all of his tanks are sieged within the vicinity of his main CC and his mineral patch. And instead of going for the mineral patch, Hilltank instead drops all of his units again on top of the choke. And he takes a lot of these bunkers, but these tanks that have been sieged here are within the range of shooting on the Zealots that were dropped on top of the bunkers. And instead all of the units die. He did break a wall, a hole into the wall of Braingod's choke, but Braingod has very little trouble with fighting this attack off. His minerals are still completely safe. He'll now be able to add on more armories. He's not adding on more factories, though I do presume he's going to lift these barracks and this engine bay up very soon and replace them with more factories. And very slowly, he's also very securely just adding on supply. And there the wall has been sealed up again. And here Hilltank is making an expo, I assume, for starports. So he's planning on transitioning into carriers once these drops either stop being effective, which they haven't been for the last 7 minutes or so. But this time he loads up a bunch of Reavers. And he's most definitely not going to... Well, actually, I'm not sure what he's going to do. He can either go for the frontal attack again, which has proven not to work 2 times already. So yes, he is changing it up again. Instead, he's going to drop on the side. And considering how many turrets there are, you'll probably have to drop very close to the wall instead of very close to the main CC. But he might just be able to fly in because there are 3 Corsairs. How many Corsairs? 4 Corsairs there, so the Corsairs will take distraction damage and take focus away from the shuttles, and there they go, they fly into the base while the front is being attacked, and he manages to drop a lot of Reavers and Zealots and Archons on top of the CC, and I even think a couple of SCVs died to splash damage from his own tanks there, and now he loses his main CC, loses a couple of SCVs too. And let's see, are there any units left inside the shuttles? There are no units left. No units left inside the shuttles. And he loses his main CC. That's very, very unfortunate for him. But it looks like he is up to something, as he has 2 dropships finished. And is positioning all of his tanks next to the dropships. And actually he's going to move out of his base, while Hilltank is in the process of recovering his entire mass that he just lost to the attack. And here Braingod is now going to push out and prevent Hilltank from getting control over the middle by very quickly killing all these cannons. The Hilltank is constructing on the middle, and he's immediately sending the rest of his units to the base of Hilltank. He's landing 4 tanks on the hill of Hilltank's choke, and these tanks will very quickly take down a bunch of units, but Hilltank very quickly also loaded up a couple of Dark Templars and lands the Dark Templars on the hill, and he's also storming on the hill to prevent Braingod from having tanks up on the hill. That would give him a huge advantage over Hilltank. But here now a lot of units that were queued and rallied to the choke of Hilltank got tangled up in the aggro and got pulled into Braingod's mass, and Braingod now dropping Goliaths on the hill, and there's a turret there on the floor. It gave him detection of those Dark Templars, and even though Braingod lost some SCVs and lost his main CC, he still has enough income to keep producing units, although his gas income is very low. He's gotta throw he's mining from 3 refineries, I think, so his gas income is very low, but he's still able to pump out a lot of tanks and units and mech while on very low income, and his supply is really low. And Hilltank's supply is really high in comparison, but because he has these tanks there and these tanks behind the hill too, he's able to take down a lot of Hilltank's units before his units can even do anything. And here he's now starting to produce carriers. He's also started his carrier interceptor upgrade. And does he actually have sufficient... I don't think he has sufficient air upgrades to even transition into carriers, because he's not upgrading as we speak. He's very low on gas, so he might not even be able to upgrade, as it's very expensive to construct carriers. His minerals are very low too. And now Braingod is pushing into Hilltank's base. Hilltank is not even able to keep up with his macro because his income is so very low. Well, he's doing a really good job of staying above the 180. But this is definitely not enough to fight this off. And he's going to lose a lot of his base before his carriers get out. He's going to lose all of his robotic facilities to the tanks on the hill and the tanks in his choke. There, the Dark Templars are trying to deal some damage, but they cannot deal any damage as the scan is very quickly thrown out by Braingod, and Braingod now pushing in and getting control over the map and even getting control over the front side of Hilltank's base. And he's also making upgrades for his tanks. He's even going for vessel energy while so very low on income. And he's pushing his tanks into Hilltank's base now. I think he was constructing a turret there, but the turret dies to a reaver shot. And now he's flying in. Oh, actually, these are empty, so he's not flying anything in at all. Goliath's walking in. He throws a scan to kill the Dark Templar. And a couple of carriers have now finished, but it takes a little bit longer for more carrier reinforcements to be ready to fight. He still has to construct interceptors too, which also takes a lot of time. Time that I don't think he has, because he's now pushing in. And here Hilltank has scanned the expo, so he now knows that there are carriers. He's seen the carriers, now trying to kill the Stargate with a single tank, which of course is not enough, but it will distract Hilltank just a little bit longer. Because now Hilltank has to kill the tank there first, and there come the Goliaths, and the Goliaths immediately focusing down the carriers. The carriers are lacking in upgrades. Let me see the upgrades. I cannot click on interceptor. That's really sucks. Alright, he's got 111 upgrades for his air, whereas Braingod has 11 upgrade for his Goliaths. His Goliaths are doing pretty good work of damaging these carriers. Not a single carrier has gone down yet. A lot of Goliaths have gone down though. And here Braingod is still pushing into Hilltank's base very slowly, but doing a lot of damage, and it's really hurting Hilltank to have lost so many pylons and gateways and all of his robotic facilities. Now he has basically no ground backup for his carriers, and his Goliaths are just doing so much damage to the carriers, and a lot of these interceptors keep dying to the turrets that Braingod constructed inside of Hilltank's base. And although he now does have all of his carriers really nicely full with interceptors, although he already lost 3 carriers and 2 more carriers are flying in. There are more tanks on the hill again, ready to take down the Stargates and take down the gateways. Just complete chaos going on. Just complete chaos going on right now in front in the choke of Hilltank's base, and Braingod still only on, although now he's no longer on 6 factories, now on 11 factories, and he's pumping a single unit from every single one, so he's not spamming out. Instead, he's just very calmly and collectedly producing units from his factories. Even he's not producing from his Stargate, and he's now also added SCVs to all of his refineries, so he's no longer starving for gas. Although his gas and minerals are very low because he's so consistently pumping out units that he needs to fight off these carriers. It actually looks like Hilltank has managed to fight this off, and I think Hilltank now also has the upper hand in this game. But while Hilltank has his carriers on the other side of his base, a drop is flying in, and he is using a defensive matrix on the dropship to ensure that the dropships get in deep enough into Hilltank's base, and he kills about 30 probes of Hilltank, and Hilltank already quite low on his income. Hilltank now is only just 18 or so probes on his minerals. He even pulled some probes off of his gas. He's gonna have to start producing probes again, and this gives Braingod the chance to push him in, because if Braingod starts pressuring Hilltank right now, Hilltank will be in need of minerals, and he will be short on minerals, and he won't be able to keep on producing ground units to assist his carriers. And there's 9 carriers out now, although 3 of those carriers are on very low HP. And this one is regenerating its shield and is almost on full HP, but it will go down really quickly if he gets EMP'd. And Braingod has a lot of Goliaths out now, and the tanks, he's now microing his Goliaths back to his tanks to prevent his Goliath from taking damage from the Zealots and taking damage from the splash damage. And the barracks has providing him vision over the hill, and now he's shooting on the interceptors. Tanks are slowly moving forward and going to take down this choke that Hilltank was trying to get down to buy himself time, but it doesn't buy him much time at all, as it's already gone. And now he is inching closer. He gets the EMP down onto the carriers, and the carriers now all have lost their shields, and it will be way easier for the Goliaths to take down. And he's now microing his Goliaths back, preventing them from taking damage from the Zealots again. Although now his Goliaths do get stormed, he's pulling back again. A lot of his Goliaths have died, and now a couple of storms coming down on the tanks. But the tanks don't die to single storms, and one carrier, wait, never mind, yeah, a single carrier went down. He's now focusing down the carriers with impeccable micro, stutter stepping forward with every single shot, and even more units. He's almost on 200. He is now even, he has more supply than Hilltank. So the tables have turned with that one very simple drop that Hilltank did, that Braingod did, but the timing of it was just perfect. And it hit Hilltank when Hilltank was at his weakest, and Hilltank now no longer has a single probe mining gas, although yeah, there's a single probe mining gas. He just has a single probe mining gas, so now he's putting probes back onto the gas, and he's now just killing things around the map to get some, to deny Braingod some map vision. And there is an EMP that went down on the Templars, and the Templars now have no energy to use their storms. He did miss the Archons, but the Archons are going to die anyway, and he doesn't use his, yes, there is the scan to take down the Dark Templars that are walking into the tank and taking down some of the tanks. There is still a Dark Templar there that is going to die very soon, as he's going to throw down another scan very soon. All the Goliaths have died, but 3 carriers have died too, and I don't think Hilltank has the resources to replace all of those carriers that quickly if they keep dying. And now more Goliaths coming in, and another carrier has gone down. The Goliaths themselves are going to die too, but they did their work. They did damage to the carriers, and Braingod now pulls back again, is going to regroup his units. And he is spending so quickly that his gas is so very low, even though he is mining from pretty much all of his refineries. And Braingod now regrouping and sending his units up into Hilltank's choke again. And there is a drop. No, it's not a drop, he's landing Dragoons on the hill. And the Zealots are attacking backed up by the carriers, but the zealots on the ground are very quickly dying, but they do take some tanks with them to the splash damage and to the damage they're dealing themselves. And Hilltank Braingod took down an observer, and he took down a single carrier, and now another carrier goes down. He's selecting the low HP carriers, and this is a lot of Goliaths. He's going to... Hilltank is still very poor. He does not have sufficient units out to fight this off. It's going to take a long time to produce enough units to fight this off, because there's just so many Goliaths inside of Hilltank's base, and he's going to get more backup from all these Goliaths that have also finished. He's not even... Oh, he is making tanks, so we will be seeing some extra tanks in the mix. But the fact that Hilltank lost a lot of his gateways earlier into the game and has not managed to rebuild them means that his production is way too low to replenish his Psy in time to fight off Braingod's mass. And Braingod now pushing in with his Goliaths, hammering away at the gateways and the pylons. And Hilltank has 5 carriers with which he can respond, and he's grouping up some units behind the gateways. And now the tanks are rolling in. It looks like Braingod has complete dominance over Hilltank's base, and Hilltank is now sending in his carriers, but a couple of carriers cannot do much, and he realizes that he has lost the game and taps out and calls it GG. And Braingod wins the game that seemed to be lost at certain points into the game. Took a lot of damage, but with his intricate knowledge of how the game works and what Hilltank can do, he immediately decides to counterattack, and his counterattack actually worked. I think that was a very impressive display. There was just so much fighting going on, and his macro was just perfect. And while his micro was at times a little bit spotty, it is still such beautiful micro to behold, because he's doing exactly what he needs to do to win the game with the exact right timings, and pushing Hilltank into a literal corner, even though he's not in a corner spot. It's a very amusing game to watch, and I hope this gives a little bit of a glimpse into what makes Braingod such a good player. Because it looks like his base is just a mess, but it works so well because he has exactly what he needs, and he manages to out macro a player who has a way bigger base than him with way less factories than Hilltank has gates. So yeah, thanks for watching. There's a little bit of rambling at the end. I hope you can forgive me for that, and goodbye.